5 years ago, I applied for the Portugal D7 visa from the United States, did it entirely myself without an immigration lawyer, and moved my entire life to Porto. I've been living here ever since. And I retired here on my 55th birthday last year. In this video, I'm walking you through the honest, practical breakdown of how the D7 works, what it is, what you need, what the process actually looks like from the US, and the things I wish someone had told me before I started the paperwork. If you appreciate me making this type of content, gently tap that like button. Let's get into it. So first, what actually is the D7 visa? Because I see a lot of confusion around this online and I want to clear it up plainly. The D7 is Portugal's passive income visa. It was designed for people who have a regular, stable income coming in that doesn't require them to be employed in Portugal. Think retirement income, pension, rental income, dividends, savings. Money that exists and flows regardless of where you physically are in the world. Portugal created this visa essentially as an invitation. If you can support yourself financially without taking a job from a Portuguese citizen, come live here. That's the deal. For Gen X Americans who are approaching retirement, already retired, or living off savings and investments while they wait for pension and Social Security eligibility to kick in. This visa was built for exactly that situation. It's not a work visa. It's not a digital nomad visa. It's a live here and enjoy your life visa. And it's the one most Americans use to make Portugal their legal home. Now, who is it actually for? And who isn't it for? The D7 is a strong fit if you have demonstrable regular income or solid savings, you want to live in Portugal long-term rather than just visit, and you're comfortable with a process that involves paperwork, some patience, and a consulate appointment in the US before you leave. It's not the right fit if you're planning to work for a Portuguese employer, if your income picture is complicated or hard to document cleanly, or if you need everything resolved in a matter of weeks. It's a thorough process. Not a difficult one, but a thorough one. Let's talk about the income requirement, because this is the question I get most often, and the answer matters. Portugal wants to see that you can support yourself financially without becoming a burden on their system. The baseline income threshold they look for is tied to the Portuguese minimum wage, which is currently €920 a month. Though this figure does get reviewed periodically, so always verify the current number directly with the Portuguese consulate before you apply. In practice, most successful applicants show meaningfully more than the bare minimum. I demonstrated over €3,500 a month, a combination of savings and other income proof. And that gave the consulate a clear, comfortable picture of financial stability. My honest advice, don't try to squeak through at the minimum threshold. Show a number that gives them no reason to hesitate. What counts as income proof? Bank statements are the foundation. Portugal now requires between 6 and 12 months of statements showing consistent funds. Don't shortcut this. The fuller the picture you give them of your financial history, the stronger your application. Savings balances count. Brokerage account statements count. If you have any passive income streams, rental income, dividends, anything regular, document those too. The goal is to build a financial picture that tells a clear story. This person has money, it's stable, and they can live here without working. The more clearly you tell that story on paper, the smoother your application goes. Now, I want to be transparent about something, because context matters here. I applied for my D7 at 50, not 55. 5 years ago, when the requirements looked different than they do today. At the time, there was no remote worker visa in Portugal. That visa category didn't exist yet, so I came in under the D7 using a combination of savings and remote work income, with a host letter and temporary Airbnb housing as my accommodation proof, both of which were accepted at the time, but are no longer valid today. I'm telling you this because I want to be clear about what was my experience versus what the current process actually requires. Portugal has updated and tightened the D7 requirements meaningfully since I applied, and some of what worked for me 5 years ago won't work for you now. What I'm giving you in this video is the current picture, not just my story. Now let's get into the actual document checklist, because this is where most people either get it right or create unnecessary delays for themselves. Here's what you need to gather before you apply. A valid U.S. passport. Check that it has at least 6 months validity, beyond your intended travel date, and enough blank pages. A completed D7 visa application form, available through the Portuguese consulate website that covers your U.S. state. 2 recent passport-size photos. Proof of accommodation in Portugal, and I want to be specific here because the rules have tightened since I applied. When I went through this process, a host letter and temporary Airbnb housing were accepted. That is no longer the case. Portugal now requires a registered long-term rental agreement of at least 12 months. That means, before you submit your D7 application, you need to have a proper rental contract in place, registered with the Portuguese tax authority. This is one of the most significant changes to the process, and one of the most common places people get caught out right now, so plan for it early. Sorting your accommodation before your application, not after, is the correct order of operations today. Continuing the checklist. Proof of sufficient financial means. Your bank statements, savings documentation, and any additional income proof as we covered. A clean criminal background check from the FBI. This takes time to process, so request it early. It's often the longest lead time item in the whole process. Travel insurance that covers your initial entry period, and the consulate fee, paid at the time of your appointment. The one document that requires an apostille, meaning official authentication for international use, is your FBI background check. Your state Secretary of State office handles apostilles, so factor that into your timeline. It adds a step to the background check process, but it's straightforward once you know it's coming. If you are applying with a spouse or dependent, you will also need to apostille your marriage certificate or children's birth certificates. Just bring originals and copies to your consulate appointment. Quick break. If you want to see what the financial side of life in Portugal actually looks like once you arrive, I have a full video breaking down my real monthly cost of living in Porto, every line item, the actual total, and if you want the full story of how I made this move in the first place, those videos are in the description and pinned comment below. Alright, the application process itself. Step by step from the US. Step 1. Determine which Portuguese consulate covers your state. The US has several. New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Boston, and Newark among them. Your state determines which one you use, and each consulate has its own appointment scheduling system, so check their specific website early. Appointment availability varies, and can book out further than you expect. Step 2. Gather and prepare all your documents. This is where you spend most of your preparation time. Get your FBI background check requested immediately. It's typically the item with the longest processing time, and everything else waits on it. While that's in process, pull together your financial documentation, get your apostilles sorted, and confirm your accommodation contract is registered and ready. Step 3. Book your consulate appointment as soon as the scheduling window opens for your location. Don't wait until your documents are fully ready to start looking at appointment dates. Book the slot first and work your document timeline backward from it. Step 4. Attend your consulate appointment with your complete document package. Bring originals and copies of everything. Be straightforward and factual in how you present your situation. You have income, you want to live in Portugal, here is the documentation. The consulate officer is looking for a clear, clean picture. Give them one. Step 5. Wait. My process from application submission to visa in hand took 2 to 3 months. That timeline is fairly typical, though it can vary depending on consulate workload and how complete your application is. Use that window productively. Sort out your housing research, your banking plan, your departure logistics. The wait is real, but it's finite. Step 6. Once your D7 visa is approved, you enter Portugal, and within your first few months, you'll need to apply for your residency permit through AMA. That's the Portuguese Immigration Authority. The D7 visa gets you in the door. The residency permit is what establishes your legal long-term status. Plan for that next step before you land, not after. Now, what would I do differently if I were starting this process today? One thing, I would request my FBI background check on day 1, before I did anything else. It was the item that took the longest, and it sat on the critical path of everything else. If I'd started it a few weeks earlier, I could have shaved time off the overall process. Everything else I did in roughly the right order. The thing I got right that I'd tell anyone to copy, I treated the document preparation like a project. I made a checklist. I worked through it methodically. I didn't rush any single item, and I showed up to my consulate appointment with an organized, complete package. The process rewards preparation. If you go in organized, it's manageable. If you wing it, you create your own delays. The D7 visa is genuinely one of the more accessible legal pathways to long-term life in Europe that exists for Americans right now. I was 50 when I applied. I did it myself, from New York, without a lawyer. It took 2 to 3 months, and what it gave me was 5 years of life in Porto that I wouldn't trade for anything. If you're sitting on this idea and wondering whether the process is too complicated or too expensive or too anything, I want you to hear this clearly. It isn't. It's thorough. There's a difference. And if you want to understand the full financial picture of what life in Portugal actually costs once you're there, my monthly cost of living breakdown is right here. Click to watch it next.